We're now on our last video of our last module. We're going to go into just kind of some safety tips that differ from bows when you're using a crossbow, things you want to keep in mind. One thing is it's very much just like a rifle. Same thing with bows. You don't want to point it towards anyone. Especially with bows now, you don't walk around with the arrow knocked and ready to go. With the crossbow, it is very much like a loaded gun. If you have the string cocked and you have a bolt in place being held and you're walking around and swinging it all over, it's just like a loaded rifle. Your hand hits that trigger and it goes off, it's going to kill someone. So just make sure if you're walking around and you've got your string cocked and you've got a bolt in there ready to go, that you have your safety on if your crossbow is equipped with safety, and that you're either pointing the crossbow down. There is some people out there who say to point your rifle upwards. I don't like to do that because what goes up must come down, and you don't know where it's going to come down at. One thing, like a lot of people have always discouraged them, like, oh, well, we don't want to point it downward because what if it ricochets off a rock and hits me? Well, I'd rather take that chance than having a bullet randomly come down on me or the friend next to me that it comes down on. So just really take your time. Be safe. Make sure you're pointing the thing either downward, or if you don't want to point it downward because you're worried about ricochets, point it off to in a direction where there's no one. If your friends are all over here to your right, make sure you're pointing your crossbow to your left. Like I said, it's just like a loaded firearm or rifle. Even if you're not using it, you want to be careful. Someone walking around with a long bow or something like that, they're not going to have that worry, so they can sit there and have their bow in their hand and go point to a buddy and all that. And as long as their other arm isn't pulling back the string, it's not going to go anywhere. So you really need to be careful with crossbows. Another thing that you need to worry about is more your own safety for crossbows, is making sure that stuff like you're using stringers and stuff to aid in cocking the line, especially with these more modern lines I'm seeing. I've seen a few people using metal for their bowstring on their crossbows. And the thing with the metal, it's very much like a cheese cutter. You're pulling on these hard metal lines and they're exerting hundreds and 50 pounds of pressure against you. I've seen a lot of guys being injured where they've pulled on these new metal crossbow strings and it's cut into them. You really want to be careful of that kind of stuff and just really take your time. As always though, I'm not an expert and I cannot list every single safety tip out there that should be followed. The only person who can really lead yourself to a safe life is yourself. So do some research, enroll in some archery classes where they teach archery forms and safety use and techniques, and really make sure you're educated on everything about them so that way, just like firearms, you know how to properly handle them safely. All right, so we've covered crossbows. Now let's go ahead and make a crossbow. Let's go ahead and head over to our last project and get started.